Hello everyone. Today we're diving into a story that has quietly set the entire country buzzing, a story that has turned whispers into a storm and curiosity into full-blown fascination. We're talking about one of the most watched pairs in Turkey, Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre Arda, and a decision that didn't just nudge their relationship forward, it fundamentally reshaped it. In a place where the lives of stars are followed as closely as the dramas they headline, a single claim has caused ripples across social feeds and entertainment desks alike. Before taking their next step together, Gökberk laid down a condition unlike anything we've heard from him before. What began as an ordinary day became, in the click of a headline, a national guessing game about what really sustains love when the lights grow hot and the cameras never look away. For years, Gökberk and Cemre have seemed like the very picture of balance, grace on the red carpet, easy warmth in interviews, and a quiet symmetry that fans adored. There were tender gestures captured on gala nights, quick escapes to the coast away from the spotlight, and small moments shared at a distance from any microphone. But those who know them say there has always been a hidden seam under that polished surface, a scar from the past that never fully faded and that has, in its own silent way, guided the rules of their renewed bond. The story, according to insiders who kept their lips sealed for months, goes back to the period when the two chose to step away from each other. No press statement, no social media notes, no drama, just a deliberate, private pause. During that quiet split, Cemre poured herself into work with a kind of luminous focus. She signed on to international campaigns, sat in front rows during fashion weeks abroad, and lent her face to collaborations that won her new audiences beyond Turkey. Her professionalism, her poise, her calculated calm, these became her anchors. Gökberk, true to his introspective nature, opted for distance in a different way. He went to Spain. Friends describe long walks through Madrid at dawn, afternoons in small coastal towns where no one recognized him, and evenings spent in silence, letting the noise of the industry fall away. He wanted perspective. He wanted to understand which parts of his life were performance and which parts were pulse. And here's the part that keeps fans up at night, even in separation, something between them refused to fade. Deleted messages that they wish they hadn't sent, photographs that popped up in their memories, the sort of reflective silences you feel in your chest, these fragments tethered them to each other despite the space. They weren't together, but they weren't entirely apart. Fate, or coincidence depending on your beliefs, drew a thin line between them and tightened it on a single evening when both were scheduled to attend the same charity gala. It wasn't planned. It wasn't a stunt. It was simply timing. The cameras didn't catch their first few glances, but they did capture the moment that matters, the one when eyes meet and 1,000 rehearsed smiles fall away. You can see it in the footage if you look closely enough. The focus shifts, the chatter dulls, and there it is, a charged stillness as if they recognized the part of each other they'd both tried to ignore. That was the night things changed. From then on, murmurs spread of midnight calls stretching into dawn, of quick flights down to Bodrum with no social media trail, of dinners in corners where the waiters knew better than to speak. The spark wasn't just back, it felt older and wiser, as if it had written a few chapters in the dark and was ready to return to the light on its own terms. But the comeback came with one boundary. If you believe the accounts of people who were close enough to witness the shift, the turning point was an intimate dinner with no one around, no phones on the table, just two people listening for truth. That's when Gökberk made his condition clear. If we're doing this, if we ever talk about forever, there is one rule, and it doesn't break. Privacy. Not the performative kind, not a temporary social media pause, but a true, practical shield. No play-by-play posts, no cryptic stories designed to stir speculation, no airing out delicate moments for attention or validation. His life had been weighed and measured by strangers for years, and he'd had enough of watching love turn into content. For him, the agreement wasn't a whim, it was protection for the one thing he refused to commodify. Cemre understood in a way only someone who has lived in the center of a lens can. She's been celebrated for her elegance and criticized for moments taken out of context. She has seen how a look can become a headline and a silence can be spun into a scandal. She knew this boundary wasn't a cage. It was a lock on a door that belonged to both of them. What they were forging needed its own room, away from the echo chamber where every gesture is doubled back and dissected. That shared understanding, sources say, became the foundation of a new chapter marked not by spectacle but by a mature, grounded trust that fans rarely get to see but can absolutely feel. Soon after, there was a proposal, but not the kind we've grown used to from the world of famous romances. No staged drone shots, no orchestra waiting behind the hedge, no exclusive photographer tipped off. Instead, Gökberk wrote. He wrote a letter, some say it was pages long. That walked through the years they've known each other. It mentioned the laughter nobody else hears in the back seat after an exhausting night, the arguments that cut too deep and the apologies that stitch them back up, the quiet intervals on balconies when words get in the way and being present says everything. And there was one line, we're told, that struck everyone who heard about it: I want to love you where there are no cameras, no scripts, and no audience. Cemre's response wasn't a polished speech. She cried. She laughed. She asked if he was sure he could live with the silence they were choosing. And then she said yes in a way that sounded less like consent and more like a promise. She would guard their story. She would protect the stillness where their real life breathes. She would allow their career-driven worlds to be public, but not their most fragile details, not the soft edges where intimacy lives. Since then, everything around them has shifted while they've stayed steady. They haven't disappeared, they've just stopped performing the parts of their private world that never should have been a show in the first place. Rumors swirl, as rumors do, about a ceremony that may have already happened somewhere abroad. Tuscany is the favorite guess: olive trees, stone courtyards, a handful of people who know how to keep a secret, but neither has confirmed a thing. What people do see are glimpses that say more than announcements, the two of them slipping out of the same quiet cafe on weekday afternoons, glimpsed leaving the same gym minutes apart, walking in neighborhoods where the photographers don't bother to look because nothing flashy ever happens there. And yet those are the moments that suggest exactly how close they are, how aligned their rhythm has become. Away from the glare, their relationship has taken on a different temperature. Instead of proving that they are in love, they are simply living it. Friends describe breakfasts that stretch long past noon, slow Sundays spent reading on opposite ends of a couch, and long drives with a single shared playlist that contains songs nobody else has heard them sing along to. It's the kind of ordinariness that is rare for people in their world. It's the kind of ordinary that feels extraordinary when you realize how many eyes they've trained not to watch them anymore. Here's the part that's easy to overlook and important to remember: it's not that they dislike their fans. Far from it. Their gratitude is unmistakable in the way they stop for photos when they're on the clock, in how carefully they choose their words in interviews, in how generous they are with their work. But loving your audience and surrendering your intimacy are not the same thing, and this is the line Gökberk has drawn. It's become the pillar of the dynamic they are building. A line that gives them the calm to breathe, the space to grow, the chance to choose authenticity over performance. Those close to them insist that life beyond the constant spectacle has redirected their focus onto the single thing that actually sustains a relationship in the long run: each other. There's still friction sometimes. Privacy is not a magic trick that erases the difficult conversations. Cemre's career continues to invite offers that demand travel, red carpets, and campaigns that want access to more than she's willing to give. Gökberk's instinct to retreat might pull him into silence on days when she needs him to be noisy. But instead of turning these moments into public theater, they've learned to bring them to the table at home, to talk without turning it into a plotline. And constantly looming is that one simple rule. Not because it's a threat, but because it's a compass. In a life where attention is currency, they've decided not to spend their love to pay for it. Of course, this approach drives speculation. Did they marry already? Are they engaged and just not saying it? Was someone's family present at a ceremony we'll never see? Every week, a new thread unspools online, weaving together sightings in airports with suspicious gaps in their schedules. The truth is, the silence is part of the point. Announcements are for projects. Consent is for their private world. By giving less, they've made everything they share more valuable, to themselves first, and then to anyone else. So where does that leave the rest of us, the ones who have watched their careers from the beginning, who have cheered and gossiped and cared? Maybe it leaves us in a place that feels unfamiliar but necessary. Maybe it asks us to accept that some stories are more beautiful for the parts we'll never get to hear. Or maybe it invites a conversation we've avoided for years in celebrity culture. Do public figures owe us every chapter, or do they owe us their best work while keeping the notes on their hearts tucked safely away? We want to know what you think. Is Gökberk justified in guarding what they have from the blinding heat of attention, or should couples who have built such massive followings open their world a little wider? Tell us your thoughts, your hopes, your guesses. The comment section is yours. And if you want to stay close to every twist we can responsibly bring you, remember to like, subscribe, and, if you're feeling especially curious, join our community here at Turkish Series Stars for content you won't find elsewhere. Whatever you believe, the journey of Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre has quietly offered a lesson that's hard to ignore. Love doesn't need applause to survive. It doesn't require a choreographer or an editor. It grows in the small, patient spaces that exist between two people determined to protect them. Their story reminds us that in the quiet, away from unnecessary noise, feelings deepen instead of fading, and promises made in honest whispers ring louder than any grand performance. Stay close, because something tells us this chapter is nowhere near its final page.